Alrighty, well, good evening, everybody. Welcome in to another episode of 3 Up, 3 Down. It's actually our final episode here to go ahead and meet with the 2021 Little League Baseball World Series umpires. Got quite a few of them on here with us this evening. I'll introduce them here shortly. Tonight, we'll continue to dive into our larger theme here of the season, that is reflecting back on 2021. Really just getting an opportunity to share with everyone what we've taken away in our seasons, what we've learned as we've gotten back on the diamond and some different types of challenges and things like that, what we've been reminded of, what we've learned, and what we're going to take forward to us in 2022. So again, really excited to touch base with those umpires here in just a second. Main focus of this evening will be really on this whole idea of a growth mindset, and I'll put that into context and kind of share some notes and thoughts that I've thought about here over the last couple weeks over our last two episodes here with the other members of the crew. And like I said, I'll introduce who we have on this week here with us here in just a second. But growth mindset and resiliency, the two major concepts for us to go ahead and think about and talk about here from the testimonies of those umpires here today. A couple announcements for me here. Next week, we'll be excited to welcome our softball umpires onto the call. Been reaching out and working out with them. This was the opening World Series for Little League Softball in North Carolina. So we'll be excited to talk about that experience. Really kind of open the door to probably what's a lot of, for a lot of us, an unknown world, I guess you could say, in Little League umpiring, and that is the softball side of things. So we are really, really excited and really fortunate to have those umpires on, and we'll be on next week, the 10th, October the 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern. That'll be our conversation with them. And just like we've had our baseball umpires, on, I will let them share about their experience and then kind of give us some insight into the softball side of things. From the looks of things, it was a good active weekend for Little League Baseball. I was sharing with some folks on before the call here that it looked like a really good weekend weather-wise and whatnot for some fall leagues, some guys making some progress and whatnot. It was cool to see some posts and whatnot this weekend. But it was also a weekend for loss. I know a few of us in the Little League families have either lost someone dear to us or someone that has been in our active roles in whatever it is that we do, like in our umpire world as well. So there's a couple losses in the Little League family there. Brian Horn, I saw you on the call. I know you lost someone in your in your network there in the Senior League Baseball World Series. Someone battling cancer for a while, so our hearts go out to that individual, that family. So just keep those people in your thoughts and prayers. Obviously still battling COVID among many other things in our lives. And just a very quick reminder of where we're at, put into perspective what we do, and then really why we should take the time to enjoy what we're doing. So just a couple things there. And then the last thing that I got is just to go ahead and introduce us into what exactly we're going into this week. So before I do that, DJ or anyone else, any announcements or anything like that to go ahead and drop on before we go ahead and get into the thick of the discussion here this evening?
All good with me.
All righty. Well, cool. I'll go ahead and get ready to introduce us into the family that we've got on here tonight. A couple featured guests to go ahead and point out for us. Again, these are all members of the 2021 COVID crew from the Little League Baseball World Series here this year. We got Brian Henry from the Southeast on with us. He was one of the crew chiefs, along with Sean Gilday. Sean, I'm sorry if I butchered your last name there. Gilday or Gilday? I'm sorry.
Gilday.
Gilday. Okay, Sean Gilday from the East. Is with us. He was also one of the other crew chiefs, as I mentioned. Brian Horn back with us, as we talked about, leads the Senior League Baseball World Series and was with us in 2021 earlier on. And then Chris Rutz. I'm sorry, Chris. Chris is with us out of the Western region. So those are our umpires from the 2021 World Series to go ahead and share some things here with us this evening. As I mentioned, our whole focus is on growth mindset tonight and resilience. Topics of conversation. We'll try and bring out those two things in two different concepts, and then obviously we'll give each of those four individuals some opportunity to share whatever they want to share here with us about their experience or about some thoughts moving forward here too. So excited to hear what they have to share. Now, as I was looking through notes and whatnot from the last 2 weeks, one of the themes, and I think you four, Sean, Brian, Chris, and Brian, you guys will agree, one of the themes that have often come up, the phrases that's come up, is that everyone has checked their ego at the door. And that came up over and over, and that allowed you guys to have some really rich conversations, to connect really, really well together, and ultimately have success. And, you know, from the outside looking in, it was really fun to watch, and you could tell that you guys definitely had a chemistry that was different about you. And as we continue to flush out kind of why that was and get a little bit of a background into, you know, the locker room and what you guys accomplished during the 2021 World Series, you know, that theme was one that was definitely one that radiated to me. So I wanted to dive into that because that whole idea of checking your ego at the door is obviously one that's it's very important and also very unique, as we've all experienced in umpiring as well, whether we be leaders in a tournament or whatever the case may be. We appreciate that, whether we are in crews or as leaders too. So I want to start there here with the growth mindset and that whole phrase of checking egos out the door. And Brian, Sean, and Chris, you guys just go ahead and jump in. If you guys start talking over each other at once, one of you guys just yield or whatever, we'll get through it. But really interested to hear what you guys had to say. Got a couple questions to go ahead and flush stuff out here tonight, and then really kind of get into that whole idea of growth mindset and, as I mentioned, resiliency here too. So we've spent a lot of time over the last 2 weeks talking about the crew chief model as a construct for your success. I want to kind of move away from that, as well as some of the keys to success as well, because we've learned over the last couple of weeks that what exactly it takes pre-tournament, and we've also taken a look over the last few weeks of what it looks like in the tournament, the meaningful pre- and post-game conversations. And those are definitely things that you can definitely come back to and talk about, but we've really done over the last 2 weeks, flush those two things out. So back to this whole idea of growth mindset. Checking egos at the door is kind of our first major theme to touch base with here this evening. And my first kind of question, just for the crew, is very simple. Just to identify and explain or share some of these specific areas that you may have found in growth in during the tournament itself. So put yourself back into August in 2021. Think about some of the areas that you may have been challenged by, and then some of the areas that you would have seen yourself or felt yourself improve upon during the tournament in 2021. So I'll go ahead and start there and open it up to you four, and appreciate you guys for being on.
Well, I'll start. Picking up on that, no one checking your egos at the door. The thing with doing that, no one felt threatened. We felt that within our crew, we could say anything, even if it may put us in a bad light, and everybody would understand, and there was no sizing everybody up and none of that stuff. We were all equal, and everybody was just trying to better themselves. The whole focus was to get together and better each crew game by game by game.
I think that's a good point, Sean. I think, the checking you made the phrase sizing each other up. I think we all knew each other coming in, not necessarily personally, but by reputation. And I think that helped us in a way, because I think all of us understood that, every one of these guys here is pretty doggone good, or they wouldn't be back. And so it was easier, I think, from that perspective, rather than from the first time where you walk in, nobody's really seen you work, just the unknown factor. And so this time was for me much more relaxing, much easier. And again, there wasn't that me versus you kind of mentality. It was just the fact that 12 of us were there, going to have a good time, and some pretty doggone good umpiring in the process.
Yeah, to touch upon that with what Brian's saying, I went into this tournament knowing that I dealt with this in my first World Series, where I felt I was going to be working with some of the best umpires that Little League had to offer, in 2017. But this year, going into the tournament, I was confident that the 11 other umpires that were going to be with us, that were going to be with me, that we were going to be the best of the best. And to go into that tournament and realize that, hey, I'm working with some phenomenal umpires. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to improve myself. And I did that. I took everything I could from every single umpire to try to make myself a better umpire. Case in point, one of the things that I've been struggling with is, my strike three mechanic. And after watching Jason Kelly and his strike three mechanic, I immediately implemented it into my game. So, I was taking things and I was trying to implement something from everybody, whether I used it at the tournament at that time or in my subsequent games afterwards that I've had so far. I feel like I had a great opportunity to work with some of the best umpires that Little League has to offer.
I've been a part of many crews and through tournaments over the years, where you throw 12 or 16 people together from all across the country and around the world. I don't know that I've ever seen or been a part of a group that has been as close and as tight knit as this group is. even still today. And I think that helped us to take our talents and use them without, like somebody said, without being threatened. It was just a really, really good time, a great 2 weeks, 10 days, whatever it was. It was really fun. And having that cohesiveness through the group, I think really made that.
Yeah, I think you guys are all touching on a really good point, because a lot of us have had experience, whether you've led crews at regional and World Series tournaments and obviously worked them as well. We've obviously had our fair share of ups and downs and whatnot with different crews. And I just kind of want to take a second here and go back to focus on, I think, two things that each of you four touched on. And that is humility, number one, and then the ability to just kind of humanize yourself in front of your crewmates. That essentially allows you to potentially be vulnerable and then obviously make that growth mindset as well. One of the things that I often share with our umpires in the Central region when they come to work our tournament is that, if you can approach the tournament as a clinic, and with the intent, as you guys have mentioned, to learn from each other, from these different umpires, and get better, the umpiring and performance kind of takes care of itself. And I don't know if you guys have anything to expand upon from that idea, that philosophy, or just that thought in general. But I think if we're more focused on just doing what we need to do to get better, inevitably performance and showcasing our talents, I guess, or passing an evaluation eventually takes care of itself.
No, that's. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was muted, but I'm not. No, that's a great point, Stu. Taking a tournament like this, and whether it's a World Series, whether it's a regional tournament, or if you just get an opportunity to work with some experienced umpires, just taking that opportunity to use it as a clinic. Yes, it may not be a clinic per se, but you can always find room for growth there. So I think that's a great point you just made, Stu.
Well, I know you've touched on it in previous meetings, but you talk about the clinic mentality. That's what our pregame and postgame was. It was clinic mentality, because it was all about getting better and how can we each improve individually and as a team.
And it goes back to what Chris mentioned a while ago is you watch, even in 2016, I never left this facility. A lot of guys will, I got to get off of here. I got to go back to the hotel. I always want to watch. And this year in particular, because of the stature of some of the guys that work these games with us, you can pick up little nuances that can only make you better. And I think that's one thing for me. Of course, this year we had a lot more responsibility as crew chiefs. So trying to make sure that we filled Mike Legg's role and try to set and help Tom as best we could, throw a water bottle at somebody and a towel. But it was just fun to sit and watch guys work and just pick up little things that, like Chris said, you might want to try to incorporate in what you're doing.
And just because you've reached the quote unquote pinnacle of umpiring doesn't mean you stop learning. I think the day that we stop learning is when it's time to get out.
Absolutely. Those are all great points. And I think, just from a lot of us who have worked World Series and ran that stuff again, we just take an incredible amount of appreciation for that perspective of treating it. I don't want to say that's I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but just, the whole idea that there's opportunity for growth in every opportunity that we have. And a lot of times we've all seen it, the umpires that are there to showcase themselves versus, just kind of watch, have fun, and really get better pitch by pitch. Those are the individuals that we want to work with and we want to be a part of. And I thought you 12 definitely demonstrated that day by day, pitch by pitch. And it was really special to go ahead and watch. I couldn't stop watching, couldn't stop rooting for you guys in every endeavor. And that was one of the reasons why, at least us on 3 Up, 3 Down, wanted to bring you guys out, because I think that mindset is one that many people may not necessarily enter a tournament into with, especially when there's an evaluation on the line. And I think that perspective coming from you 12 speaks far greater volumes than any one of us could ever put into words as well. So I appreciate you guys taking time to flush through that.
To go along with that, Stu, really, I love what you just said. And guys that are working to get to the regional level, to the World Series level, I look at it this way. There aren't nearly as many set of eyes evaluating your performance at, say, the regional level, although with all the games televised now, there are. Can you possibly imagine the number of evaluations we took over a 10-day period by who knows how many people? So again, it's a matter of just taking that experience and just, breathe, take a deep breath, enjoy the experience, go out there and do your very best. And if it's good enough, it's going to get you past.
So with this whole idea of mindset and whatnot, and I know we all on this call have worked tournaments before. So, our conversation with the Little League umpires is not any more unique than the stuff that we've gone through either at state tournaments, district tournaments, or whatever the case may be. But obviously the stage is a little bit different too. There's a little bit more risk reward, if you will, there at the World Series. So, with this whole idea of growth mindset, Brian, Chris, and Sean, you guys have all four talked about watching and observing. Chris, you mentioned the strike three mechanic and things like that. I just ask for a couple of things here that you may have tweaked, either one or two things that you felt that you tweaked mechanically, or something that you may have just really picked up on that made a difference for you in this tournament. And that can either be done something that you were, like I just said, that you did in this tournament, or something that you changed from your first tournament as well. So kind of what were some of the tweaks, small or great, that you may have made that may make us think about, how exactly to approach any type of opportunity such as this one in our futures?
Something that really stood out to me was about how to maintain focus. When you're in a game, it's easy to lose your focus, and then exactly that's when the stuff's going to hit the fan. So for me, it was about reminding myself to stay focused, stay in the moment, anticipate what the ball was going to do. If it went here, where did I have to go? That kind of thing. That hit home for me more than anything.
And I already touched upon, my strike three mechanic, but one of the other things that I really had to work on in preparation for the tournament was our rotations. I think Sean and Brian Horn, you guys will agree that when we had one of our calls discussing the rotations, I was the mindset that some of the rotations could have been done a little bit differently, that I thought were a better fit for a Little League Diamond. It was discussed, and there were a few options. There were a few mechanics that there was really no room for movement on, no room for give. So I needed to go into this tournament with the mindset that I needed to maintain focus, just like Sean just said. I needed to maintain focus on where I needed to be on the ball field. And you know what? Although I may not necessarily have agreed with some of the rotations, at the end of the day, I saw the benefit. I saw the benefit in that it made sure that everything maintained a certain level of continuity and standardization across the board. There was no thinking, oh, do I need to go in on this, or do I need to stay put? So at the end of the day, I saw the value in the rotations that we had agreed upon by Tom Rawlings and the crew chiefs.
Well, I think for me, focus was, and I don't know if Sean or Chris or Brian even heard me say this. I said it to my crew. The first time working the 4-man mechanics was in Williamsport for me. Never had the opportunity to really do it completely at the state tournament level with the crew that I worked with there. So again, the focus to know pre-pitch where I should go. In any case, if I'm the plate umpire, do I have a rotation up to third base? If I'm the third base umpire, do I have both second and third? So for me, it was just more of a focus issue to try and make sure, not that the mechanics were difficult, but to make sure that I was in the right place at the right time.
I want to touch base with this whole idea of focus, because there's this conception of like, okay, these people need to focus, and like we even catch ourselves drifting. Maybe it's in a conversation with our wife or our kids or whatever it might be. And like you're like, all right, I just need to focus, and then you just start to like, you can easily get tunnel vision that way as well. So like when you guys do mention focus at the same time, like it's not just like a snap where you're like, all right, I know what I need to focus on. So I guess what I'm trying to think about here is just, what are some things that you found yourself doing specifically to help you focus on the right things? Maybe some things you thought about, some things that you said to yourself, or like a phrase or a mantra potentially that you may even came back to at least put your focus to exactly where it needed to be to succeed.
I have a kind of a pre-pitch ritual, I guess. I think back like when I was playing ball, I always thought before the pitch, what am I going to do if the ball is hit to me? And I tried to carry that over into the umpiring world as well, and think pre-pitch. What happens if? What's my situation? How many runners do I have? Where are the outfielders playing? That sort of thing, and try to carry that over into the umpiring world as well. And it seems to have benefited very, very well.
I think my focus. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Stu.
Go ahead.
Oh no, Sean, go ahead.
Okay.
No, I was just going to make a joke. I think my focus was to not trip and fall. The older you get, the harder that becomes. So, yeah, I think my focus was, okay, if I have to go here, please do it gracefully.
Well, we both got tripped by the same catcher. Did you realize that?
Yes, we did. But and the best part about that is you cannot see it on TV, and very few people know it.
True. We know it, but nobody else did.
I was on the field with you, and I didn't see it.
Yeah, thankfully.
I was just going to say that now I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, Sean.
Speaking of focus, huh?
Who better to, I can't focus right now.
It was Ethan, man. It was Ethan. That was the whole
Ethan
deal
was
right
the
there.
catcher. You're right.
Yeah.
We were talking about pregame, or not pregame. What do you do to stay focused?
Mm-hmm.
And Brian mentioned about when you're at the plate. Well, when I'm in the bases, pre-pitch, I like to make sure I look at all three bases and give a quick look at, if I've got guys on the bases, a quick look to the outfielders. I want to know where they are and how that might impact where I have to go. So it was like every pitch, look around the bases, look in the outfield. Nobody on is not such a big deal, but when there's guys on, plus knowing where they are in case there's got to be a ruling of a base award or we have to move them back or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think those are really good points about focus. And it's almost just an internal communication to yourself to remind you of what you're responsible for. But I've often found focus too, not only in doing that, but and Sean, you and Brian can probably speak to this, and we all can too, because we've all been in positions of leadership on the diamond too. But there's an incredible amount of focus in terms of channeling it appropriately that comes as a leader on the diamond too when you communicate with your fellow umpires as well. So I think that that's a very interesting talk that that communication can definitely be internal. But at the same time, what I thought you guys did a really good job of, and I had a little bit different seat to watch you guys on this one too. But your signals were very subtle, but at the same time, you could definitely tell that you guys were doing things or not necessarily every pitch when necessary, when situations changed and things like that. So I think a big part of that focus was not only the demand on yourself mentally, but also then probably the communication between you guys as well. Would you agree with that too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the pre-pitch signals are everything. And I think the more that you can fall back on those pre-pitch signals, it kind of recenters us as umpires. Okay, here's a reminder, this is what we're doing. And I think that's a valuable tool to have.
Well, I think it was important from a crew chief perspective to, obviously with the rotations, we started out with the crew chiefs on the plate. And so kind of setting that tone with communication, I think was a huge key. And I really felt like, it was great to have Jason and Sean go in front of me. Didn't have to worry about being on the plate till the third game of the day, but to watch the communication with the crew and then ensure that we're communicating correctly as well.
And as we've mentioned, a lot of that has been a testament to the work that you guys put in pre-tournament in your work and your Zoom calls before then. And then obviously the diving down into in each pregame conference, and your postgame conferences there too. There's complete products then of that work coming full circle. And not only at one opportunity, but a continuous cycle as well, which was definitely a theme I think we've extracted the last 2 weeks. Kind of want to move on to like the next theme, which I think really ties into where we're at, and I'll get ready to do that here too. We've been talking about this growth mindset, and we've obviously mentioned about focus and some strategies to keep us focused, such as talking to ourselves, reminding ourselves of our responsibilities, and then picking up eye contact with our fellow umpires on the diamond and making sure that they too are engaged in the game, which obviously keeps us in the game too. The next part of this then is from that growth mindset, obviously resiliency is there too, because as we're growing, we're going to try new things. Like Chris, you mentioned your strike three mechanic, or if it's something like maybe make an adjustment to your wedge steps or whatever it might be. There's a risk involved in all reality, and as we get better or as we grow, we go through 4 different stages of development where you don't know what you don't know, and then all of a sudden, unconsciously, you're able to accomplish what it is that you're doing. So I want to touch base here with this whole idea of resiliency and positive self-talk and things like that, especially its necessity at the level of these tournaments to be successful. And I guess the first thing for us to touch base with, and we've kind of already started to do this with the whole idea of focus, but just to identify for everyone some of the areas of struggle that you may have had in the tournament that you were alert to, that you essentially identified as things that you needed to get better at. So if you want to just quickly share anything that you found, maybe not necessarily a big struggle or anything like that, but just put into perspective some of the challenges of working a tournament like that, or a tournament in general here, in the idea of resiliency. So just a couple ideas here of some of the areas of struggle or challenges here that you guys would have faced for this tournament.
I think one area of struggle I had was one of my first games, my first time at first base, I had a call that was challenged that going into the challenge, I felt I was 1000% correct. 1000%. I thought there was no way this call is being overturned. And Patrick Griffin was my plate umpire in that game, and he came back and signaled. I think he signaled the run. I can't remember what it was, safe or out. Actually, I had called the runner safe, and I thought for sure that we were good. But after review, it came back and my call was reversed, and that messed with me for the remainder of that game. It was early on in the game, and it messed with me because I was replaying it in my mind. I heard a distinct thud, and then I heard a distinct pop of the mitt. So I thought the runner was safe. And then it just really made me question what I was hearing, because I remember taking the time on that call, processing everything through, and I thought I had it correct. And ultimately the call was reversed. And like I said, it just made me really dig down deep and try to get through that, because I was literally questioning my training at that point. That how could I miss that call? Because when you look at the replay, I don't think it was as close as my mind thought it was. So that was a hard part for me.
Chris, can I ask you to just a follow-up question on that too? Like, because that video replay is real, and those of us that are going to work, whether it be the Little League World Series or any of the regionals, or even the World Series tournaments themselves, all are privy to replay. So in that moment, I think it's definitely okay for you to sit there and internalize and process it. But talk about how you moved on from that point too. Like, what were some of the things that you had to go through, tell yourself, think through in order to really move forward from that spot, whether it be in that game or throughout the rest of that tournament?
As much as I was questioning my training, I had to fall back on my training that I had. I've said this before, that I feel as though that I've been fortunate to be trained by some of the best umpires that Little League has to offer. So I really had to fall back on that training. And, it got me through it. But, like I was saying, it kind of made me question some of the other calls that I felt that were just as close that I ruled one way or the other on. Like, okay, did I get what percentage of those did I get correct? And it was just playing games with me. But to get through it in the tournament, I just really had to fall back on the training that I've received and the experience that I've developed over the 23, 24 years.
Good point.
I would add that, like Brian said earlier about, I can't even think of what you said now. Now you got me messed up, Brian. It's all your fault. What I was going to talk about is it took us 4 games to finally start to get into sync with new rotations and knowing when to go out, when not to go out, and whether there was hesitation. I know the second time around, I was on second base and Chris was at third base that particular game. And we got to the point where it just took a little look and maybe just a little wave of the hand, and we knew not to go out or to go out. And that happened several times in that game. And I found that we had gotten into sync by the fifth, sixth, seventh game. We were kind of running on all cylinders.
I think that's a really good point. I make this point oftentimes with our umpires too about being patient. And that's exactly what you just mentioned, Sean, because there's a learning curve involved in it too. And I think so many of us want to hit the ground running, or so many of us have visions for what we think this experience will look like and how we'll perform and things like that too. So being able to like enter it in with a growth mindset, and then consequently being patient and ultimately resilient, resides in that whole idea that we are in. I've referenced these 4 stages of growth and development, and I'm going to try and find kind of a slide here in just a second. I know I've got it somewhere that kind of talks about us. It's from Brad Stevens, and I know he stole it from somebody else, and I'll continue to recycle it as many times as I can, because it really kind of just humbles us in an understanding how difficult the job is. And because of that, we've got to be patient with ourselves, not only to gel with other crews, new mechanics, but just give us ourselves a time. Like Brian Henry, like you mentioned too, just first time you're working this 4-man on that field as well. So I think that's a really good point, Sean, about not only as Chris talked about with the video replay and kind of talking yourself through that mentally, but just being patient to go through those stages and realize that you're going to grow. You just got to kind of stay at it. So I think that's a good point too.
And you got to watch
I
not
think,
to shut down because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, if you're out there and you're aspiring to get to that regional World Series level, the patience that's there. I look at it as slow down, process. I think all these other 3 guys will tell you, if you slow it down, the game becomes so much easier to umpire. When you speed it up is when you're able to make mistakes. And again, it's like a good quarterback or a good pitcher, letting the game slow down enough, even as an umpire, that even those problem plays don't become a problem. And I think that's, that from a patience factor, I think, just slowing things down, because the speed of the game's quick at the 60-foot level. These guys will tell you, you get to the World Series, it's quick. So if you speed up, then the game's going to speed up. If you slow down, it'll slow down much easier for you.
I think that's a fantastic point as well. In getting yourself through those struggles definitely requires patience and, like you said, processing. And we've all heard the phrase "proper use of eyes." I've probably said it enough times to try and coin it as a catchphrase this year. But Brian, that's exactly what you're talking about. That at the end of the day, when we are struggling to get things done the way that we would like them to, not only do we have to be patient, but you got to have an opportunity to allow yourself to process that, and that all obviously then comes from our use of eyes.
I think too that if we do rely on our training, like Chris said, go back to our training. Even though the speed of the game is very, very quick, like Brian said, at this level, the game, because of that training, the game will slow down for you automatically. And then the consistency of having these mechanics, having those consistent across the enterprise, that will increase our level of comfort going in, maybe so that we don't have to worry about quite as much, knowing, say, hey, what's my partner going to do? Where's he going to be? If we have that across the board, we already know that, and that will help us also.
Great points, guys. I've taken away some really great notes and just perspective from you 4, and I appreciate there. Just in the whole idea of this growth mindset and that talk that we've been having, this whole idea that essentially comes back to both growth mindset and resiliency, all then resides in kind of 3 major themes that you guys have all shared. And number 1, like you just mentioned there, Brian, was relying back on our training. And as long as we can continue to go back to our fundamentals that we've had, those will not fail us. And whether we are challenged at a certain level to a degree, Chris, as you mentioned, that we may not agree with, revert back to that and have faith and trust in that process from our training. Secondly, then to really find a way to slow down the game or process the game. That's through proper use of eyes. Brian, Henry, you made that point. And then Sean and all of you guys have made big points about being patient with yourself all along the same time. So I think those three ideas, relying on your training, finding a way to slow the game down and process it through proper use of eyes, and then patience with yourself as you're growing. Three major points here that I've really, three golden nuggets that I've taken away from you guys, and appreciate you sharing your stuff there. Anything else to add there here, guys, before I transition us to our next little phase here before wrapping us out? All righty. Well, the last thing then that I have here is just a closing opportunity for all these fellas to kind of share any other type of wisdom or anything else that they want to share here with us about working a tournament, any suggestions they may have about Williamsport, the process of umpiring, and whatever it is, our role in the program too. Just kind of give you four, a very open door here to share whatever you want to share about your experience, any advice, ideas, thoughts, words of encouragement here for all of us as we all just kind of continue to hone in on our craft and get better as we start to turn to 2022. So I'll open the door here for you guys to go ahead and share anything that you may want to at this point.
I'll tell you what I do when I approach a game, and I kind of use this as a training tool for people that I instruct and train, whether it's at the local league or at my clinics, is I kind of jokingly say that I'm the reason why Little League instituted the mandatory play rule. When I played Little League, I had no athletic ability. And Gary Grotman will attest to that. I have no athletic ability on the ball field. But what I do is when I did play Little League baseball for 2 years, for me personally, that was every game I had, whether it was a Saturday afternoon game or a Tuesday night, every game I played was my Little League World Series. And I treat it as an umpire, I treat that as my mantra. I go out there on the ball field thinking that there's this player who's never going to see a tournament team. He's never going to make it to the Little League World Series, but by God, he's telling his mom, he's telling his dad, he's telling his grandparents, aunts and uncles that he's got a game Tuesday night, and he wants them to come out and watch, because to him, that's his Little League World Series. So what I do is I treat every game that I umpire, whether it's a Little League game or an adult baseball game or whatever, I treat it as though it's a World Series game. Because to me, if I can make that experience for that young ball player a World Series caliber game, then I feel as though I'm doing my job. And whether it's worked for me or not, going into every single game that I umpire with that mindset that it's a World Series game, when I was fortunate enough to get there in 17 and again in 2021, it just made it that much more of a natural experience for me.
I think from my point of view, if the guys that are coming up, I think back to when I first started umpiring. I was wearing shorts, shin guards over it, a balloon, it's like we all started. And if you had asked me 30 years ago, would I ever be umpiring the Little League World Series, I'd have told you were crazy. But as time went on and I got more training, clinics, schools, it became my belief that I could do it grew and grew and grew. And I think that's what we need to instill in the younger people coming up, that they can do it. They've got to believe that they can do it. And we could have a vast army of umpires in the future. They just got to believe.
Once you do have the opportunity to do it, just cherish every moment of it, because those 10 days go by in the blink of an eye. And so just make sure you soak it all in and take every bit of it that you can get, because it will go by very quickly.
Most definitely, Brian. I think we may have heard Mike say that a couple of times throughout our experiences in Williamsport. And I guess for me, 5 years later, just getting a second chance, to do an experience of a lifetime again, is absolutely incredible. And I think now it becomes our job to make sure that we mentor those who want to go through this process. I think that some may agree or disagree, but I think that may be one of the key components we're missing is that mentoring opportunity. Is there that guy at your local league or that you see at a state or a regional clinic that you just pull aside and say, you know what, you really have the potential to be really good at this. How can I help? And I think from a perspective, I know Sean and Chris and Brian all instruct. We try to do that, but again, I think we need to target individuals and say, you know what, let me help. How can I help? Send me video. Let us break it down, and just again give back to the program. That this is, I think, is the biggest sticking point for me. Man, I can never repay what Little League's given to me, never, but I can sure try. And so, my goal is to continue to give back as much as we can to help the guys that want to attain the same type of level baseball or softball that we've been able to. And if we can do that, then, we can kind of ride off on the horse in the sunset and be happy with that.
And Brian, I think that that comment and that whole point, you're spot on, ties right back into Sean, what you were talking about, you've got to believe that you can do it. And Sean, I would probably say that you had somebody in your experience, as we all have, that was just kind of your cheerleader, that inspired that belief of, hey, you can do it. And, and all of us that have definitely tried to instruct and whatnot, I know that a lot of us try and do so from a place to empower and equip people to succeed. And Brian, your point about mentorship, we definitely need it all the way around the board. And, as we all continue to make achievements and accomplishments, and as much as we want to get there, like that's the next step. And I think that is probably what allows us to take our program holistically from where we are right now to where we may not even be able to envision ourselves in the future. So I really like those two concepts and appreciate you guys for sharing those things. So, couple quick things from me here to go ahead and wrap things up. First of all, you four, Sean, Brian, and Chris, thank you so much again here for joining us here this evening. Again, a bunch of golden nuggets here these last 3 weeks, and I hope a lot of people have been able to take one or two things away. I know I generally take about 2 pages of notes through all this. Tonight was no different here, just on the ideas that are being shared there too about experiences and how to frame those experiences, and whether you're somebody that's going to enter a tournament or run a tournament. Hopefully, the conversations that we've had have helped to put that into perspective for you to lead and get yourself ready to lead whenever the door whenever that opportunity may come. Just because I referenced them from Brad Stevens here earlier tonight, I'm going to go ahead and share with you those 4 levels of competency here real quick, just so that you guys can kind of see what I was talking about here. I've got them highlighted right here. There are 4 stages in this whole idea of being process-driven and patient and whatnot here. And I've got them highlighted here. You can see that being unconsciously competent, where you don't know what you don't know, and you just keep on going down through there until you get to level 4, when you're unconsciously competent. And that's obviously a process. And as these 4 individuals have shared with us, that allows us then to, number 1, make sure that we revert back to our training. And secondly, we find a way to slow it down, to process the game. And then lastly, we have patience with ourselves to realize that we are all in process. A comment that Jason Kelly started us out with in week 1 of all this stuff. And we are in process, not just in the whole idea of umpiring, but obviously in a variety of different little small increments of it and mechanics and whatever it might be. So just wanted to flash these up on the screen here for you if you were somebody that was interested in where exactly those came from. Like I said, I got them from Brad Stevens. He used to coach at, obviously, Butler, and then he was with the Boston Celtics and still is there. But nonetheless here, I'm sure he stole it from somebody else, and just kind of passing along that to anyone else here too, to put it in perspective, not only what's in front of us, but what exactly we've got to accomplish in those high-stake tournaments. So I figured I'd share that with everyone as well. Again, appreciate everybody from being on here yet again. We'll hang around and kick it however long we want to go ahead and stay on in the post-game. If you guys have to go, that's fine. Just a couple quick last announcements here for me. Again, huge amount of gratitude and appreciation to Sean, Brian, and Chris for joining us yet again this evening, and all the other umpires that were able to join on with us over the last 3 weeks. Congratulations on World Series number 2, obviously, but even more so, thank you for taking so much time with us to kind of flush out your experience, to share some ideas and thoughts, to ultimately make our program better and give us at least one thing to think about as we all continue to try and get better at what we do on the diamonds here for Little League Baseball and Little League Softball. Next week, as I mentioned, October the 10th, we'll be on 8 p.m. with our softball umpires. Be excited to welcome them on, hear their stories, and also then kind of get to understand and learn what the softball side of things has to offer us in this Little League program. And then we've already started to go ahead and piece together our next season, and we'll take a break here after we touch base with our softball umpires. But our next season will really focus on preparing to lead in 2022, how to organize clinics and things like that, and take a lot of the ideas that we're getting from our World Series umpires from this year, baseball or softball, and really put them in motion to make our programs and make ourselves better at what we do. Again, I thank everybody for your attention, your participation, and we'll go ahead and hang on here. If anybody wants to hang on and talk, we'll be there. If you guys have to go, that's fine. But nonetheless, here, I look forward to seeing everybody next week, October the 10th, for our softball umpires. Same time, same place, October 10th at 8 p.m. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week. Have a great week, everyone.